Alrighty then, we are back after, I don't know, a long hiatus here of Down to the Studs podcast with Brett Stein, your friendly neighborhood real estate agent. Important guest here today. Very important. My new boss. Founder, CEO, Big Kahuna. I don't know what your job title is, but you look like a founder to me. Just like zip up sweatshirt.
You gotta look the part.
Is that a Homewise shirt underneath as well?
I'm fully branded here.
Unreal. And I'm not branded at all. The only branding I have is like an extra small, double extra small t-shirt. So we're waiting on that.
It's coming. I think you just need to close some more deals. Guys, you're looking for someone to sell your house, Brett Stein and the Stein Realty team, now part of Homewise. So you heard it here first.
Quick plug. That's what this podcast is about, just plugging me as many times as possible. But official, Jesse Abrams, again, founder, CEO, Homewise, mortgage solutions, real estate. Very, very exciting. And just for some quick background, I spent over 3 years with Slavens, amazing company, amazing people. I owe so much of what I am today to them and to the team at Slavens, from everyone from the real estate team to the support staff. And we had some conversations over the years. I was never really looking for a change. Obviously I have some conversations. I've spoken with all the big companies because, you always want to keep all your doors open. But, we had some solid conversations, some solid Zoom calls over, I would say, 2 years?
2-3 years. I was you were the big fish we were going after for some time.
Yeah, that's what you tell them all. That's how you reeled me in. Just tell me I'm a big fish. Blow up my head and I'll come running down your door. Here's a good question for you. Why me?
You know what? So with a business like Homewise, people is the number one most important thing we've seen. We started the business about 4 years ago now, and many of the people we started the business with are still here. And that's one of the things that everyone told me when starting a company is number one thing is people. And when we were starting the real estate team, Josh Raxlin, who obviously you know really well now, our broker of record, one of the first things we said is we have to get an incredible team to join Homewise. And yes, we got Josh. He's incredible. He did an awesome job starting the business, but we wanted to expand from just having one person. And we thought about a couple things. One, who is and what team are a great real estate team? But two, who would share our vision, right? We're not a classic mortgage brokerage. We're not a classic real estate brokerage. We're a tech company. So we wanted whoever came to our team to see that vision and to understand things. And you mentioned the long game that I played with you, the 2-3 years of conversations, and also knowing you since you're an 8-year-old. So we've definitely played the long game to get you on the team.
The long con since first year Hawthorns, HB1.
That's right. And we'll get into that. But for us, it was just getting great people on the team. And every time we had a conversation, we truly felt that you shared the same vision. You understood what we were building here. As you mentioned, Homewise is mortgages, Homewise is real estate, but our goal is to be end-to-end home ownership and bringing great people onto the team that we could build the business with, learn from, and add to overall what Homewise is. Right. That's what excites us.
Well, that's what's so interesting as well, because I've always, from whether it was real estate or any business that I was in, for me, it's about people. Right. And it's so hard. And I mean, in real estate, when you've got 70,000 agents in the GTA, it takes 5 months to study and get your license. And it seems like everyone's a real estate agent these days. So when thinking of who to partner with, who to build relationships with, who to build your business with, it's tough because there's a lot of people that I don't really vibe with. And there's a lot of people, trust is super important, being a genuine good person. And that's what I've always thought about. Okay, where do I want to work? I want to work somewhere where it's just good people helping good people. And we've always said that, our team here, we just want to be good people helping good people. And I feel like this partnership can help us get there. And then all of a sudden you throw on the tech, and then all of a sudden you throw on the mortgages and everything being in-house and the end-to-end, like you're talking about. I think sky's the limit.
Yeah, and we love it. And exactly what you're saying. I didn't have to feed you any lines here. You understand what we're doing at Homewise, and that's why we're so excited now. And this is just the start of that next phase of the business, which is real estate, which has such a big opportunity. So yeah, we're lucky to have you and the whole Stein Realty team on board.
Awesome. And you're a props guy, so I'll give you the props. Keeping COVID safe here.
Yeah, anyone have hand sanitizer?
So let's go back a little bit. back in time, like what was the void? Why did you start Homewise? How did it come to be? And, walk me through that process.
Since I was 8 years old, I dreamed about getting into mortgages. And obviously that's a lie, right? It's one of those things where we're never taught about mortgages in high school or university. It's not a topic. I remember Finance 101. That was the first time I ever heard the term interest rate. And I think the word mortgage was mentioned once. And I was like, well, mortgage, what the heck is that? And it's such an interesting thing. So my background is actually all in customer acquisition. I led the digital marketing department at General Mills for years. Then I ran a data agency. And one of our biggest clients was actually one of Canada's largest banks, specifically working on their first-time home buyer millennial business, as a lot of big companies say, oh, we want those millennials or Gen Zs, right? And working with them for a few years, I learned a lot. One, how slow-moving these big banks are. Two, how out of touch they were. But three, their digital processes were absolutely horrible. And that's where everyone's going. You don't call your mom and dad that much anymore to say, hey, where should I get my mortgage? And if you do, you're like, okay, maybe I'll search online first.
Right. And they're probably, the mortgage broker or whoever's working at the bank is probably 80 years old by now, right?
Exactly. They're 80 years old, or you're dealing with someone who then switches to a new company 2 years later. So the person you're dealing with is now gone. It's just so convoluted. So that sucked. And I learned a lot about that. So when I actually bought my first home, I knew I wasn't going to my bank because all I thought to myself is that they're not going to give me the experience I'm looking for. So I looked online and I found a bunch of rate aggregators, which confused the absolute heck out of me. Listen, I mentioned I did a commerce degree in university, but mortgages were just never a subject there. So I went through these rates that I saw on the site. I called by these lenders and they said, oh, you don't qualify for this. You don't qualify for that. This is what you qualify for. That confused me even more. So I called up my realtor, who should have been probably you or one of the other members of the Homewise real estate team, another plug. But I called my realtor and he put me in touch with someone through someone who was a mortgage broker. And I had an hour and a half phone call with her. Then she sent me a 4-page Microsoft Word document, not even a PDF, Microsoft Word, to print, fill out, scan, send back. Then I had to meet her at my office. Then I had to meet the lender out in Oakville, which was about 45 minutes from my office. And it was a classic, there's got to be a better way moment.
Right.
And that's where the initial idea for Homewise started. Carlos, my co-founder, and I came together and said, how do we simplify home ownership? And the mortgage being the center of that, because it's such a powerful data set, how do we take that and expand into other categories so that when Jane Smith comes to Homewise, we can help her get her pre-approval, then introduce her to her realtor, then provide her life insurance, her property insurance, her real estate law, and any other services all under one umbrella. And that was the vision. Simplify the experience because it's supposed to be fun. There's a quote I love by Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until you're punched in the face. That's what I often say the home ownership process is. Right. You go in, you want to buy a house. It's so exciting. And then boom, that punch in the face, the mortgage. What the heck could I afford? There's a land transfer tax. There's real estate fees. So that's where the initial idea came. And we just want to make the home buying experience actually fun.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because every business these days, all startups, it's all about how to make the customer experience easier, more efficient. How can we save more time to people to scroll mindlessly through TikTok, right? Like, and home ownership just feels like it's lagged so slowly behind. And, but that's one of those things, tradition. People hate breaking tradition. That's why you have people still working with mom and dad's mortgage broker or still working with the bank or thinking that they have to walk into their bank to get the best mortgage. And they don't know about these other solutions that can make the process easier, but also at the same time actually save them money.
And that's one of the key points. What we realized, we actually did a cross-Canada study, and we found that over half of people who did our survey said they would go directly to their mom and dad's bank if they were getting a mortgage. They didn't even know there was other options available. And I always joke, like, would you go to a shoe store that only had one pair of shoes on the wall? Probably not. And could you imagine if those shoes cost $800,000?
Right.
It's crazy. And we go directly to our parents' bank, and they very rarely are going to offer you their best option right off the bat. And that was a big idea, a vision for ours is, one, how do we aggregate all these services from real estate to mortgage and everything in one place to simplify things? But when it comes to the mortgage specifically, how do we provide options? We search through all the different lenders for our clients, and they save a lot of money. And it's such a crazy thing that we don't think to do this a lot of the time, but it's such a Canadian thing. We're so safe with our banks and our decision making that we'll just go to who our aunt or uncle might suggest, even from a realtor perspective. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to work with my cousin because that's what he does.
And for me, that was such a huge reason for me to come on board with Homewise and with you, is because we are heading into an interesting time in our market right now. We are in a time where people are using the R word, recession. And, rates are higher than they were 6 months ago. Prices are dropping. People are getting nervous. People are already nervous. So it's like, okay, how can we, help people in this time? And if that's with better rates, that means, you're spending less money on a monthly basis. If that's making the process easier, if that's educating people better, to have, whoever just be more prepared for this process. Because when rates were good, and I'm talking about, sub 2%, everybody was buying, right? Everybody was a buyer. It didn't matter who you were. You were getting money from mom, dad, cousin, whoever, just to get into the market, right? So there wasn't really a lot of due diligence done. So you're talking about going to a shoe store. People actually spend, I find, more time and do more due diligence buying shoes. They'll go to different stores. They'll look online. Oh, they'll find something on, Kijiji, something like that for a better price. And with going into a house, it's like you walk in, I love it, but there's going to be so much competition. So we have to put an offer in today. And what's our budget? Who cares? Throw it all down, right? It happens so quickly.
It's crazy. And emotion's a major factor there. And that's what we try to help with, right? Is there's a lot of emotion in the process. So how do we simplify everything else so you make the best decisions? You mentioned education and advice. I am telling so many people right now that come Q2 of next year, that's going to be a great time for first-time home buyers. Everyone's like, Jesse, what do you mean? Interest rates are so much higher than they were 12 months before. I go, okay, well, here's the thing. If the house originally cost $900,000 and you had a 2% interest rate, if the house drops down to $800,000 at a 5% interest rate, you're going to pay maybe $50 to $100 more per month. But at the end of your 5-year mortgage term, you're going to owe about $80,000 less on your home. That's a lot of savings.
For sure. People say, and a good friend of mine told me this, you date your mortgage rate and you marry your purchase price, right? The rates are always going to change.
Yep.
5 years from now, they're going to be different than they are, right? 10 years from now, they're going to be different, but your purchase price is always going to stay the same. So if you can capitalize on prices going down, which they are, and they will continue to do so, and that might not mean prices going down as a whole on average, right? But we're talking about the micro here. Like I always have conversations about, I don't work in the macro, right? I'm not an economist. I work in the micro for Jesse. Me and Jesse are looking for a home. We're looking for a good deal. And Joe, unfortunately, might be in a tough position with his variable mortgage rate, and he might have to sell. So he might be more motivated to allow some room for negotiation. And that's how you capitalize. You can't just wait until the Toronto Star posts an article and says, it's time to buy now, because then you're just going to flood the whole market with competition again, and you're not going to be able to capitalize.
Yeah, it's a great point too. And the marrying of real estate and mortgage together is something that I don't understand why it didn't exist, and why not every realtor is a mortgage broker, and why not every mortgage broker is a realtor. It doesn't make sense, because there's so much power you get going into the buying experience, knowing what you could afford, knowing what your interest rate is, and actually having the mortgage team and the real estate team talk through the process. Because there's a lot of intricacy there. Like last year I bought my second home. I don't own two homes. I leveled up from my first home that I bought 7 years ago. I know. I'm not one of those investors, but bought my second home. And the reason I was able to do it is I was looking to refinance my mortgage, saw what my home was worth, called up my realtor, bought a home within 3 weeks because I had all the information. I knew what I was looking for. I understood my financial situation, but also my home buying situation. And that's a really important thing for people to realize is if you are looking to buy a home in 2 months or 10 months, speak to a mortgage representative at a company like ours, like Homewise, or if you want to go to a mortgage broker, go there. But get an understanding of what you could afford, because it's going to let you know so much about your buying power. But also, I'm sure you, like a lot of other people, live on House Sigma all the time. Soon to be Homewise, we'll be doing some stuff there. But you live on House Sigma and you're consistently seeing, wow, that home has been on the market for 60 days. I should look into that. There's a home around the corner from me that sold for half the price of their neighbor sold for 12 months before. It was crazy. This is a seller who had to sell their property. But we're going into a market right now where people got B mortgages and private mortgages or variable rate mortgages that might be forced to make a financial decision to sell their home that they might not have been thinking about. So being able to work with a company that understands both ends of the rung just gives you a great advantage.
For sure. And we want, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, because it's not just a plug on our business.
Totally.
But our main goal at Stein Realty Group is to ensure that the clients are comfortable with the whole process. And that's why we always start by saying, listen, I have clients that it's taken 2 years for them to buy a home. I have clients that it's taken 2 weeks for them to buy a home. I don't care either way, right? But the first step is always knowing what you can afford, always. Because just because your dad or your uncle who's bought a couple houses before told you he thinks you'll be able to get $1.1 million from the bank doesn't mean you'll be able to get that, right? You have to go through the process. And if I can have that in-house, under the same roof in the same team, and we can be able to work through that process comfortably and efficiently for the client, and then transition that into actually maybe just it's casually looking, receiving some listings, and then, okay, I'm ready. I think now, the family's ready, or whatever circumstances have changed that you're ready to pursue that next opportunity. And then when you do find that house, like you said, you're ready to jump rather than having to go through the whole approval process. It doesn't make any sense to me why people have such a struggle of just getting approved. It costs you nothing, right? You don't have to sign anything. You send in some documents, you fill out a couple applications, and boom, you know how much, even just for fun, it's nice to know how much you could afford.
Totally. And everyone says, well, I'm going to get a hard credit check. It's one of those things that, like, the credit check gets this major reputation for itself. Like, every time you get your credit check, that's going to lower your score. Yeah, there's a couple points here or there that's going to lower, but if your credit is above 700, you really have nothing to worry about with credit checks. So it's a great thing to defend yourself against market factors, to get yourself prepared to buy, and also not to get your hopes too low or too high, because a lot of mistakes people make. I often say this: if you buy your first home, that's a way to get into the market. When you're buying your second home, that should be your house. Right. It's not a short-term investment. That's a long-term decision. Like the home that we bought, I now have 2 kids. When I bought my first home, I was dating my wife. Now I'm married with 2 kids. Totally different financial and life situation that we're in. The house that we're in now, I'd like to be there for 30 plus years. I don't want to move. And that's a decision that understanding both the purchase and the financial side can be really helpful with, so that you understand where I want to be today and where I want to be in the future.
And a lot of people are asking questions, reaching out to me, and I see a lot of stuff on Twitter because I'm mindlessly scrolling, and I mean, so much negative stuff these days. But people saying, well, why would I get into the market? Interest rates are this, your monthly payments are this, this is how much money you're throwing. Well, for me and for a lot of clients that we've helped service, that first purchase, like you're talking about, gives you the ability to get into your next purchase. Because if you buy a condo at $700,000, even if it just slightly appreciates, which in the last 10 years, it hasn't slightly appreciated, it's gone up quite significantly, but that's just holding your money there, right? And you're paying into it with principal every month, so that when it's time to sell, you get your money out and you have your equity and you have your down payment for your next house. Whereas if you just never buy that condo and you're just trying to save, you've got to save so much money, right? With inflation the way that it is and spending, it's very difficult to buy that forever home as your first home, right? And segueing, I imagine Homewise isn't your first, exploration into tech or into, business, because that'd be pretty crazy if this was just like, oh, I'm going to start Homewise. And now you've got a company that's hired one of the, self-proclaimed best real estate agents in the world, in the entire universe.
At least top 2.
At least top 2. And Jamie, my sister-in-law, being one.
Exactly.
So take me back to before Homewise. Where did your entrepreneurial spirit start? Where did you start in business, in school? Take me back as far as you want.
Yeah, it's funny. So I went to McGill. I did a commerce degree. focus in marketing. And I remember first year university, I'm a massive Leaf fan, like big loser, like every Leaf fan, but you just love to lose apparently. Maybe this year is the year though, guys. But I remember being at McGill and I couldn't find a way to watch the Leaf game anywhere. Then I found a bunch of streaming sites and I streamed all the Leaf games on my computer. All my friends were saying, how are you watching the Leaf games? I was telling them. Then Facebook came out to Canada my first year of university. So that's back in 2005, I believe. And I'm like, okay, this social media thing is really, really interesting. I did an internship at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment after my third year of university. And it was so easy. I had so much time. So I just kept on wanting to do things. And I remember I was working with the Toronto Marlies at one point, and their website was just, I didn't like it. So I'm like, I'm going to do a little pet project. I redesigned their website using Photoshop and PowerPoint. And I'm like, this is going to be kind of cool. I'm going to just try to present this to my boss. Presented it to them. I thought it was a nothing, whatever. I'm a 21-year-old guy. They don't care what I say. 3 months later, I'm back in university. I go to the Marlies website and my entire design was their new website. It's like, wait a second here. This is cool. Like, this is a niche. This is something that people aren't focused on. And then again, in fourth year university, I remember doing a project, I guess hockey, this correlation with hockey and tech. I guess those are
I do remember you had a wicked Tamarack hockey slap shot.
Hey, number 1 draft pick by the Junipers. Me and Adam Zeldin went head to head on that one. But we did a project on, I don't remember the name of the AHL team at that point. They now have a different name, I think Laval Rocket or something, but it was the Montreal Canadiens AHL team. We did a project on them, and it was all about getting young people to come out to this AHL team. And my entire group project was, guys, we're going to do banner ads, we're going to do Facebook ads, we're going to do YouTube ads, because that's where this whole demographic is. And I remember I got one of my worst marks that I ever had in a group project. I sucked at tests, great at group projects because I could clearly talk. I'm just not a test guy. It was such a bad mark. I'm like, holy shit. And I apologize for swearing, but I'm like, holy shit. No one sees this digital revolution that's really happening here from a marketing and a business perspective here. They're looking at these tech companies like Google and Facebook saying, hey, look how great they are, but the market's shifting. So I saw a big opportunity there, and I said that the area that I want to start off in is advertising and marketing in the digital space. So that's what I did. Started off there, got really lucky, built my career in those different companies I mentioned earlier. Proximity was the first one, which became BBDO's digital firm, General Mills, and then a couple companies, Engagement Labs, which sold to Beyond Marketing Group, which became the agency we ran here. And just, again, saw the opportunity to build a business. And as I was working at these companies, I tried to start a couple different startups, and they literally never got off the drawing board. One was called Red Light, Green Light, which was basically Tinder. I still love that idea. It's too bad we never did it, but it was basically show a picture, you choose a red light or a green light on the person, and you go from there.
Was there anything like different? Like what was the difference between Tinder?
It was before Tinder.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you invented Tinder, and you invented this guy's website, which probably now it's like, the highest grossing website revenue in the AHL, and he owes you 100%. Royalties.
So MLSE, I know you guys are worth a couple $1 billion. Give me 1%. But it was, there's a lot of ideas out there. So many people have had the ideas for Tinder probably before it happened as well. And it's all about aligning 3 things I find when starting a business. 1 is the idea. Okay, idea is great. 2 is team. Team is the most important thing. The reason, so there was this idea, there was another idea I had that was, I don't remember if it was mine or another member of my team that we started with, which was an online recruiting company for kids at a university. Because I remember at General Mills, we only recruited to Ontario. I'm like, you guys are missing McGill, UBC, University of Manitoba, all these schools across the country. You're just basically going to Western and Queens and U of T and York. Like, you're missing so many students. That was another idea. But again, it was idea, team, and execution. That was a big thing that happened with all 3 of these ideas. And I had a bunch of others, but the idea might have been good or might not have been. The team, I remember with the recruiting company, one of the guys I was starting with just got a job at Google. He's like, I can't focus my time here. The other guy was just about to get married and have his first kid. He couldn't spend his time there. Right. So there's all these things that came into place that said, okay, this is why it's not going to work. When the idea for Homewise came about, it came out of an actual problem I had. And I think that was a big thing. I saw firsthand the issue and I saw firsthand the opportunity. Right.
Like with red light, green light, you didn't have a problem dating. Handsome guy yourself. It wasn't really a problem for you.
I had more problems than you can imagine. But it was one of those things where I saw a big opportunity. I had conversations, and I also saw it was an industry that was growing internationally. Bringing on Carlos, my co-founder, and some of our founding team members, like a guy named Evan Mintz, who was our original mortgage broker, I saw the team was coming together as well. And we said, okay, the idea is there. The team is there. The execution started to get there. And I sort of had one of those, I got to jump into the water and do this. I had to quit my job to do it, or else I was never going to take this risk. And I think that's whenever I hear someone say, hey, I started a company. I said, great. What do you do? And they tell me, I go, okay, what about your full-time job? And they say, oh, well, this is what I do. I say, okay, well, you'll have some fun there. Maybe you'll start that business. The second someone tells me they quit their job and they're going full in, I say right away, mazel tov. That's the most difficult thing you could have done in the process. It's difficult, but you're going to have a lot of fun and you're going to learn a lot. Quitting your job and taking that risk. We had 3 guys working in the basement of my house. I made no salary for 2 years. I put my own money into the business. Right. We went full into it. And I think that's a big thing is you want to align those 3 things, idea, team, and execution. But a big part of that execution is taking that leap.
Well, it's sink or swim, right? It's it's literally life or death. Like, right. I meet with a lot of young agents, and it's the same kind of thing. Maybe they have another full-time job, or they have other aspirations. They have other things that are more of a priority than real estate. And just like you say, in my mind, I'm thinking that's great. You might get a couple people who say, yeah, sure, help me with the rental or sell my grandmother's house. But for this to be a long-term business, it needs to be life or death. It needs to be, something that you're thinking about, you're waking up thinking about, you're going to sleep thinking about. And, that's what real estate is for me. I don't have anything else that is my top priority. This is my top priority. And when you're starting a business, I can't imagine that you can put in the effort, the physical hours, but even the emotion and the hurt of rejection. And I imagine it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows getting to this point, right?
Well, it's funny. You mentioned my prowess back in the day. Getting rejected a lot was helpful. But no, that's a part of it, right? And listen, Homewise could be a major success, but like any startup, it could also fail, right? And you're 5 years into a company and you're like, this could still fail, right? Mm-hmm. Any startup could fail. And I think that's one of the big things is there's a term I read in a book. It's called a sidepreneur. I'm going to start it one day. I'm sort of working on it. And side hustles, they sometimes work really well. Sure. But if you're going to go full in, like my first 2 years of Homewise, I was 7 days a week working until 10 o'clock every single night, all the time. During that time, I got engaged. I got married. I had my first kid. It's not easy. You also have to have a partner who's accepting of that. My wife is an incredible person who understands that I like to work a lot. And that's an important thing as well. I also have 2 parents who are entrepreneurs. So I learned from that mentality of you can't go in half. You got to go in 150%.
Well, that's so interesting that you bring that up too with family and your wife. And because how important is that, having somebody who can support you and be understanding, knowing that, again, it's sink or swim for you in business. It's life or death. It's literally food on the table or not, right? I know for me personally, shout out to my girlfriend, Jacqueline, who's working upstairs. She's so supportive of me. And she sometimes, when the market's slow and we can sit on the couch and watch Bachelor in Paradise for an hour and I don't get a phone call, that's great. But, when the market's moving, I'm on the phone all day long. I'm running around all day long. I don't have time to come home and make dinner or do certain things. And she's so understanding of that and so supportive, and having that support system, it must be everything.
It's so important. And what I realized it early on because she never really questioned it. She saw what I was doing. She understood it. And I think that's an important thing. If you're a female founder, if you're a male founder, if you have a significant other, if you don't, is building a support system. It's not just your significant other, right? I am so lucky. I have a group of friends that I could call for advice. And I love that about the Canadian market as well. There's this high tide rises all ships mentality. And I'm a big fan of that, where I know my wife is there as my biggest support structure. And she's there whenever I need her. But I also have so many friends that I could call for advice, who could connect me with people if I had questions about a whole different subject matter. And that's something I often give to people as advice when they're starting a business is tell everyone your idea. My friend Paul told me this. He did something called Y Combinator, which is a big startup accelerator incubator based in San Francisco. It's probably the number one in the world. And I asked him after he did it, I said, what was the best piece of advice you got? And he said, tell everyone your idea, because if someone steals your idea, that's a shame on you, right? You should be building faster and better. Some of the best ideas and the best advice I've ever got was telling people my idea early on. And it wasn't just my idea, it was our team's idea. It was what we were building. I said, guys, tell people, hear what people say, hear what the issues are, what the likes are, what the dislikes are. I can't tell you how many companies I see that build that way that have such great success. But then there's the companies who like keep everything to themselves, and they say like starting a private company, a rogue startup, like all this stuff. I'm like, okay, well, I know when you're going to release your website, I'm going to be totally confused by what the heck you do.
Right.
And I always call it the grandma test or the grandpa test. If you could show your business to your grandma or your grandpa and they sort of get it, that's great. Because that's what you want to create when you're creating a business. Unless you're doing like a high-tech business in some crazy AI space or quantum space, get that.
But then again, let's not throw any shade. Grandma or grandpa might be very well versed in the tech industry.
Hey, it's possible. My grandfather was an airplane welder, so
wow, that's pretty cool.
He knows some stuff there.
So take us forward. I guess we've learned where you started and building Homewise and to where it is now with this in-house mortgage platform and real estate. What's the future of Homewise?
Yeah, the future of Homewise is the end-to-end homeownership process. That's been our goal. Is we always say that we're Homewise, not mortgage-wise, for a reason. So the future to us lives in 3 different locations. The first one is this end-to-end process. So right now we have the ability for someone to come to our site, get a mortgage pre-approval, get connected to an incredible realtor, either our team that we have in the GTA or the network we've created across the country, because we are Canada-wide. Then we have partnerships on insurance, life insurance, property insurance, and partnerships in real estate law, where someone could do each stage of the process all in one place. But our vision doesn't just go to the initial purchase. So many of our users are first-time home buyers. And I told my story of how I was 5 years into my mortgage, and that's when I parlayed that into my next home. We want to own and help out someone with their whole lifetime of owning a property. At the 4.5-year mark, we want to give them advice on how to better leverage that property. Do they level up and buy their next home? Do they refinance? Do they renovate? What are their latest mortgage options? We want to be there for the full lifetime of their home. And that's a big opportunity on one part of the business. The other side is partnerships. We've been building some major partnerships with our business. Brookfield Residential is a huge partner. They build a ton of homes. Shane Homes, Fieldgate Homes, a ton of home builders. But if anyone knows NerdWallet, major US tech company, we launched their Canadian mortgage side of the business with them. We're doing that with a bunch of other tech companies as well. Then there's professional services. So that's the second major category for us, is finding the situations where people are going to buy homes and weaving Homewise as a technology company into that. And that's a really important thing. We mentioned the importance of great people, but we've built some really powerful technology, and that tech connects to our humans. So that's the second really important thing of our business. And then the third side is just continued expansion. We are now in every province except for Quebec. One day we'll be there. My parents are Montrealers, but mon français est très merde. That's basically all I got there. But we're looking to get there eventually. I'd love to have meetings in Montreal and get some Schwartzes and have a nice conversation over a sandwich. But that's the third part, is really expanding across the country and then eventually looking globally. I mentioned Carlos, co-founder, he's Brazilian. Hey, maybe that's an interesting place for us to look to. Right. Central South America, all those different places where they have massive populations, but their banking systems have not been as strong as they've been in North America.
Well, I guess the key is because like the real estate agent, coming from a football background, is oftentimes seen as the quarterback, right?
Totally.
I'm quarterbacking the whole process. So it's usually up to me to refer the mortgage broker, refer the lawyer, make sure that everything is running smoothly between all channels, from the first showing, or I guess the first day getting approved, to actually getting your keys, moving in, and then beyond. So for an individual real estate agent to be able to have to quarterback that entire process without the tech behind them, without the support of a big team like Homewise, it's difficult. And it's difficult especially if you're doing lots of business and you've got lots of closings and lots of people that you have to quarterback for. It can be really tough. So to be able to get involved with a company, to be able to get involved with Homewise, who can, now all of a sudden I might be the quarterback, but Homewise is the head coach, right? And now having a partnership to be able to take people from day one of, well, maybe I'm interested in buying a home, to, 3 years in after they've closed, to talking about different insurance options because they're changing certain things about their home, or talking about, where their, rates are going to be in 6 months when, they're going to be renewing. That's why aren't we already offering that service to our clients? It seems like we're letting our clients down by not being able to offer everything under the sun about real estate for them, and being efficient about it, but then also just keeping them updated. Like, they should know the value of their home. They should know options moving forward, whether it's, again, like you say, end to end, real estate, mortgage, insurance, legal, and working through the entire life, because that's our goal as a real estate agent, is to be there for when you buy your first house and be there for when you buy your last.
And that, it's a great point. I like the quarterback one because I'm a sports analogy guy. I always say that the realtor is the orchestrator of your home ownership experience. So many companies have tried to cut the realtor out in the US and they haven't worked. All these companies now have probably the most realtors at any company that is in the industry, be it Open Doors, Zillow, Redfin, all these different companies. They have, every realtor goes there. And you bring up the key point. I couldn't believe going into this industry how aggregated it was. How a realtor would say, oh, I got a guy. I work with this person. They take me to Leaf games. It's like, that's the relationship. There's no data share. There's no information dissemination between each end. And you bring up a great point. Like, part of the growth of Homewise is we want to add top realtors to our team. We want to be a place where people want to come because they can come here and know that their client's going to get incredible service, but they're going to be providing that to their client. You come to Brett is able to help you at each stage of the process, but also when it might be time to buy your next home, you have so much information at your disposal. So I'm not a big book reader. I'm a big book listener. I listen to a ton of audiobooks, and there's a book called Free the Future of Radical Price. Love that book. I highly suggest it to everyone. And one of the parts that always resonated with me is they had the CMO of Geek Squad. Geek Squad's that company that's part of Best Buy. They build your stuff for you. And he was asked a question. They said to him, let's say his name's Larry. They said, Larry, why do you have videos on your channel on how to fix every product that you guys fix? He goes, well, most people aren't going to figure out how to fix it themselves. They're going to see how difficult it is, but they're going to see our Geek Squad logo there the entire time. That's sort of our mentality as well. We want to provide all the information to our customers so they can go do it themselves, but they see us as the engine that could help guide their journey along the way, because we provide that realtor that could help you at each step. We provide the searchability to find all these different mortgage options. We connect you into insurance and law, which some of these products will eventually bring all of them in-house or have some still partnerships. But even like, I remember finding a mover is difficult. Yeah. Switching over your postal code information on your mailing and all that stuff. It's all so disjointed. And really all you want to do is you want to get to like IKEA or Wayfair or wherever you go to buy your furniture to move into your home so that you can sit back on the couch your first night, have your pizza, turn on whatever TV show you're watching. Maybe it's Bachelor in Paradise, unfortunately, and enjoy this place that you've been dreaming about for so long. Because that's a lot of what a home is. It's a dream for so many people.
And that's why I love the idea of Homewise, because you look at one end of the spectrum, and that's Brett Stein, realtor, the personification of needing to be personable and specific towards clients. And then you look at the other end of the spectrum, a complete tech company that has no customer interaction and it's all online. And then you look at Homewise, and it's trying to marry both. It's trying to preserve, we're not trying to cut out the realtors. We're not trying to cut out the brokers. We're trying to preserve the customer interaction and, ensure that the highest level of customer satisfaction in that way, but then also be able to offer the better tech than anyone's able to offer. And,
Totally.
a better experience on that side of things. So for that, you're the man. Thank you for introducing me into this business. And, as long as it took, we got it done. I'm beyond excited. I think we're going to build something unbelievable that's going to change customer experience. I think it's truly people are going to be excited to work with Homewise, knowing that they can just sit back and everything will be done efficiently for them, and they don't have to chase 3 different movers and somebody's not going to show up. And again, like you say, moving is a headache, right? Let us be your Advil, right?
Totally.
And
we won't be out of stock like all the kids Advil and Tylenol right now.
So and that's kind of all professional. And I know, we've been talking for a while here, so we'll wrap it up soon. But I am really curious about, I know you're involved in a lot of different charitable organizations, and I know you've, started different ones, and that's a passion for you. So if you want to talk, I've got your whole LinkedIn right up here that I'm not going to read, but the Joel Schwartz Memorial Hockey Tournament, I know I've heard so much about that over the years, and I'm not quite good enough to play in it. But tell me about that and about some of your other endeavors in that space.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll give my mom full credit for this. She grew up, she brought me up being charitable just because she was. I mentioned she's an entrepreneur. She owns her own business. She would leave early in the morning, get home 6:37 at night, and she would still put in the hours to help out with charity work. Every year we did the Terry Fox run. Then I did 5 Ride to Conquer Cancers with her. She really ingrained that in me, and my dad too, but my mom, she really wears that on her. And with the Joel Schwartz Memorial Hockey Tournament, unfortunately, one of my good friend's brothers passed away at a very young age due to complications with autism and Asperger's. And 2 of my best friends, John Schwartz, which was Joel's brother, and Zach Belsberg, we came together and we said, let's do something. Like, we have time. We're young. We were 22 at that time. So let's do something. We started that hockey tournament. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. We raised $1 million in about 5.5, 6 years, helped out so many people, got to get really involved with ARENA and the ARENA Foundation, which provides respite and enrichment programs for people with developmental disabilities. That was incredible. And we did that for 6 years because I mentioned networking and getting advice. One of our friends who's 4 or 5 years older than us, his name's Dave Goodman. Dave had done a lot of charity work. We got his advice. He said, don't do more than 5 to 6 years at a charity because you have this natural parabola. You get to the top and you don't want to drop off and end on a low note. And we realized that. So we ended that on a high note. And all that money is now consistently used every single year because they reinvest it and get the money back. But then Zach came to me and said, hey, let's start something else. And then we had this model of the hockey tournament, which was a lot of fun and great. He said, how do we make it even more inclusive? Because in the hockey tournament, we had a women's division, we had a men's division, and we had an old timers division. But we thought to ourselves, what sports can men and women play together, young and old people play together? And I thought volleyball, like that's probably the most inclusive out of all sports. So then we started serving for Sinai, all for Mount Sinai Hospital, which is incredible, all the work Mount Sinai does. We wanted to do it for 5 years, but COVID got in the way. We did it for 4 years, raised about $800,000 for that. It was great. A ton of different companies got involved. It was a great tournament. And COVID put a hampering on it. But now we were actually talking about it this morning. Zach's my closest friend. We talk way too often. But we have vision for what we want to do next. We're probably a couple years away from it because the second you have a couple kids, and he has a third coming fairly soon, things get that much more busy. But I don't want to lose sight of what our vision is for it. And we want to do a lot of things in the education space for underprivileged kids. That's the next step we want to do. And I think the main message I always say when people ask me, oh my God, how do you have time for all this stuff? I go, we have a lot of time, and we're also very fortunate. It's a way to give back, and it's also a way to learn. The amount of learning I've gotten from the charitable initiatives that I've been part of, I learned from the people I work with. I learned from the people we're helping out, and it's important, right? So I highly suggest to anyone, even if you could raise $5,000, do it. Like there's so much we could do to get involved. So that's been something important to me. And again, kudos and all credit goes to my mom and making that an important part of who we are.
Well, that's so cool because, you know, you look at a lot of businesses and you look at a lot of people who, you know, do things later in life, you know, to do with charity, and, you know, hopefully everybody has a real genuine way about it. But obviously you have some people who, okay, well, this would be cool for me to market myself in this way by giving to this charity or by doing this thing. And it can be sometimes self-serving, but it's so cool. Like you're talking about at age 22, you know, to start this when, you know, sure, you had an entrepreneurial mind, but this was like, you know, this is out of the goodness of your heart. This is doing something good. And, you know, marrying that with you being an entrepreneur, being able to start these things. Like I'm not an entrepreneur. People say real estate agents are entrepreneurs. Sure, maybe by definition, but I'm not an ideas guy. I'm not a guy who sits down and thinks, okay, what's the next best idea that I can do? I'm more of execution, right? Relationships and execution. And like charity and community involvement is something that I am really passionate about being involved in. So let that marinate.
I'll
if there are ideas, you know, I would love to be a part of it. And, you know, I just think it's so important. And that's kind of one of the reasons as well I wanted to start this podcast is most episodes, we're not talking about real estate. I'm not telling you to buy or sell or rent. You know, I don't really think that's my business model at all. Like my job isn't to convince people to transact. My job is to be here and be able to help you when you are ready and kind of groom you to when you are ready. But, you know, it's to be involved in the community and to sit down with people like yourselves who have, whether it's small businesses, big businesses, side hustles, and just get to know people more. Totally. And, you know, so let the charity thing sink in. I want to be involved, whatever I can do other than, I mean, I'm not very good at volleyball either.
But you bring up a good point, though. You're an execution guy. I think anytime you start a team, you have to think about what your skill sets are. I remember the founders of Spin Master. There was a TED Talk that I think it was Anton Rabi did on it, or I never know how to pronounce his last name, but Anton did, and how his 3 founder team have completely different skill sets. Carlos and I couldn't be more different. When he tells me marketing ideas, it's the most ridiculous thing you'll ever hear in your life. Like he wanted to use one of our interns who never talked the entire 4 months he worked with us to do a marketing an ad on Facebook about our AI that we use. I'm like, number one, this guy's not going to talk. Number two, no one gives a shit about the AI. So I think when you start a business, you start a charity, you want to think about what the areas are that people work within. If someone's purely an ideas person, a strategy person, great, pair them with an execution person. Right. So don't sell yourself short and say, hey, I'm an execution person. I don't know what value you could bring. Everyone wants execution people. I'll give you a great example. In Serving for Sinai, there's this young guy named Bobby who was part of our group. And he was such a go-hard. He worked his butt off. And then he started a charity right after called Swinging for Sinai, which was a golf tournament for Mount Sinai Hospital. That was awesome, right? He created a team based on that, and he started that after. So I always say it's like, how do you allow a core that you create to go build into more things from there? And it's different skill sets.
And we'll leave you here with, you're talking about sports analogies. It's like some of the, you know, you talk about a coaching tree, you know, Bill Belichick's coaching tree and what assistants have worked with him and gone off to coach other teams. I mean, not so successfully, but there are certain guys that can build an amazing atmosphere around them and, you know, attract amazing people and inspire them to go and do their own things. And, you know, I think you're one of those guys and you're inspiring me right now, just looking at that perfectly coiffed head of hair.
You'd be surprised. My kids were grabbing it this morning, so I'm happy it doesn't look like
and thank you for coming. Thank you for making it all the way downtown. I'm sure you haven't been down to Ossington in a while. And, you know, you're the man. I appreciate you. Jesse, Abrams, Homewise, real estate, mortgage, et cetera, because it's going to be so much more. And hopefully I'm here to build it with you.
So excited to have you on the team, Brett, and appreciate you having me on today.
You're the man.
You too.
Cheers.